The request no one makes, Rhea Lawson had built her life like a careful garden. Orderly paths, measured sunlight, and no surprises. At 46, she was the respected director of the River Glass Conservatory, a historic greenhouse complex where endangered plants were rescued and public pride was quietly kept alive. She ran at dawn, answered emails before breakfast, and said no to anything that threatened professional balance, especially romance. On a bright Monday that smelled like wet soil and orange blossoms, a new volunteer signed in, Jordan Vale, tall, sun-browned, a quiet confidence in the way she stood under the glass ribs of the Palm Dome. The sign-in sheet said, Community, Volunteer. Her eyes said, I can fix things. She didn't ask the small talk most visitors asked. She glanced once at the map, then at the door marked Staff Only, then at Rhea herself, as if she'd recognized something Rhea had spent years hiding. Director Lawson, Jordan said, the last name warm, not formal. If there's time today, I'd like permission to see the restricted gallery. The old iron frame in there. It's shifting. The words landed like a pebble in a perfectly still pond. The restricted gallery was the conservatory's most delicate biome, storm-damaged years ago, sealed for study, limited access. Only senior staff went in, and even they treated it like a sleeping giant. Jordan had been here 7 minutes. That area is closed, Rhea replied, professional smile engaged. For safety. Jordan nodded without argument. That's why I'm asking. I'm a structural engineer. I do assessment and rescue work for fragile heritage buildings. I can see stress lines from the public path. She pointed, and Rhea, despite herself, followed the line of Jordan's hand. There was a bow in the steel that only someone searching for trouble would notice. Rhea's heart, inconveniently, did something she told it not to do. Attraction, yes, but also alarm. If Jordan was right, the sleeping giant was stirring. And if a donor heard risk before Rhea had a plan, the board would thunder. We'll schedule a review, Rhea said. Later this week. Jordan's smile was small, not triumphant. Copy that. I'll be around. If you need an extra set of eyes, mine are yours. All day, Rhea felt that sentence echo. After closing, she walked the empty glass corridors, keys chiming, swallows stitching the sky. She unlocked the restricted door and stepped into the silent heat. The air was different, older, watchful. Under the latticed shadows, she finally saw it. A hairline crack near the load joint, faint as a whisper. Her stomach sank. Jordan had been right. Rhea could call facilities and bury the credit in a work order, keep control and keep distance. But the truth was simple. The best eyes on this problem might belong to the woman who had asked, calmly, to enter the room no one entered. Rhea locked up and found Jordan in the volunteer workshop wiping soil off her hands. Tomorrow morning, she said. Before the building opens, hard hats, 1 hour. Jordan's eyes lit with the pleasure of being trusted. She did not step closer. She didn't need to. The glass above them scattered the pale evening into silver nets, and Rhea suddenly felt years fall away, like dust brushed from a historic plank. It wasn't love. It was something more dangerous at the start. Possibility. And possibility, she knew, could make a life bloom, or bring the roof down. But what happened next changed everything. Pressure points at 6:00 a.m. When the streetlights still blinked away their final excuses, Rhea and Jordan entered the restricted gallery in silence. Helmets, clipboards, measuring tapes hung like stethoscopes. Jordan moved like someone who had earned authority in storms. She crouched without complaint, slid fingers along cold metal, measured the bow, and listened to the building like it spoke a language only a few learned. She explained quietly, thermal expansion, poor patching from a decade ago, and a hidden leak. It's subtle, but the load is migrating. That's why the floor feels different underfoot here. Rhea froze. You felt that? Jordan nodded. I was raised by a contractor. Floors talk if you let them. Rhea wanted to smile and didn't. She wanted to ask what else Jordan had learned to hear by listening. And she didn't. She logged the findings and promised a temporary shoring. Fast. discreet. By 9, the board's finance chair, Evelyn Brandt, was texting about gala seating charts and tone. Evelyn's tone was always lace over iron. Rhea postponed conflict and instead walked Jordan to the staff exit. "Thank you," Rhea said, the words heavier than gratitude. "There may be backlash if word gets out." Jordan's expression stayed calm. Keeping people safe isn't a scandal. It's leadership. The compliment landed like a challenge. Rhea had spent years practicing a leadership that made donors comfortable. Jordan had practiced one that kept people alive. In the afternoon, gossip fluttered. Someone had seen the director and the new volunteer disappear behind a locked door. Gerald Pike, a major donor who mistook his name engraved on a bench for co-ownership of the place, delighted in questions that sounded like warnings. "Transparency matters, Ms. Lawson. Our families like to know what happens in rooms the public cannot enter." Rhea's jaw tightened. "Yes, Mr. Pike. Safety audits happen there." His smile said he preferred gossip to safety. After hours, Rhea sat alone in her office, the conservatory's night hum settling around her like a living creature, and reread the day's notes. The bow in the frame was not catastrophic yet. Fixable if handled with speed and care. The simplest solution: hire an outside engineer, slow, expensive, donor-pleasing. The smarter solution: quietly empower the best expertise already offered. She typed one line in a secure thread to facilities: provisional consulting clearance for volunteer J. Vale, structural review only. Immediate shoring. It was a small rebellion, and it felt like exhaling for the first time in years. Outside, rain began as a whisper. Inside, under glass, something older than fear stirred. Hope. Which is why the email hit so hard the next morning. An anonymous message to the board. Grainy photos of Rhea and Jordan walking together at dawn, accompanied by a sentence as sharp as a blade. Inappropriate access. Inappropriate relationship. Rhea's hand trembled. She knew this language. The word inappropriate used to make women small. She also knew the stakes. Donors could rescind, boards could flinch, and the work could bleed. She clicked open a second email, this one from security. Sensor flagged minor shift overnight near the bow. Time had run out for caution. She stood, grabbed her helmet, and texted Jordan. "We fix it now." But what happened next changed everything. The night the glass trembled. The storm rolled in fast, dark as an old debt. Wind pressed the glass like a giant hand. Rain lashed, and the palm dome sang in a tone Rhea had only heard twice, the song of stressed steel. The public had already been cleared, but staff remained, finishing tasks that always begged for 5 more minutes. Rhea toggled to the intercom. "All non-essential personnel, exit now. Facilities, to the restricted gallery with me, immediately." She sprinted, boots loud on iron grates, breath white in the sudden cold. Jordan appeared at her side like she had been summoned by the building itself. No chatter, no drama, just a nod and work. Together they installed temporary shores, wedged as if they were bracing a failing heart. The bow eased a hair. The storm leaned harder. A rivet moaned. A single pane spider cracked into a white star. "We have to vent pressure," Jordan said calmly, pointing to the louvers high under the crown. Rhea stared at the ladder. "Manual crank. It sticks in weather." Jordan was already climbing. Rhea followed, muscles burning, the glass ceiling inches from their helmets, the city a smear of silver beyond. Jordan braced, put her shoulder to the crank, and the stubborn metal gave in increments that felt like centuries. The building inhaled. Wind found a way through, pressure equalized. The star in the glass froze in place, not spreading. Below, facilities cheered in the way people cheer when they cannot breathe and then can. Back on the ground, soaked and shaking, Rhea looked at Jordan and felt not the first rush of a crush, but something quieter, deeper. Respect stitched to relief. "You saved us," Rhea said. Jordan shook her head. "We saved it." The pronoun mattered. It made Rhea ache in a place success never touched. Later, when the storm moved on, a different thunder arrived. Evelyn, shoes dry, voice sharper than rain. "Explain the volunteer in the restricted gallery. Explain the rumors. Explain the photos the donors received this morning." Rhea stood straight. Ms. Vale is a licensed structural engineer specializing in fragile, historic frames. Her expertise prevented damage tonight. And the rumors? There is nothing inappropriate here. There is work, and it was done. Evelyn's gaze flicked to Jordan, found nothing to catch, then back to Rhea. This place runs on perception as much as plants. Control yours. After she left, Jordan exhaled. I can take the hit, she said quietly. If you need me to step back, say the word. Rhea wanted to choose safety, the old kind. Instead, she surprised herself. No, we do this correctly, together. That night, after paperwork and apologies and gratitude, Rhea sat in the silent orangery and read a ledger of the conservatory's earliest days. Between pressed leaves, she found a folded letter dated 1944, a hidden voice describing 2 women who learned to be brave in a world that did not want them to. B, the signature was only an initial, M. Rhea, touched the fragile paper as if it were a hand. The past felt close, and suddenly the present did not seem like an accident. But what happened next changed everything. Enemies, allies, and the letter in the wall by morning, the gossip had grown legs and a microphone. Anonymous accounts posted the photos with captions that pretended concern and sold harm. Is the director compromising safety for a relationship? One asked, trying to weaponize decency. The board scheduled an emergency session. Gerald Pike arrived early, delighted. I have to protect my family's name, he murmured for anyone who would hear. The meeting began like most ambushes, polite knives. Evelyn asked the questions that would read well in minutes. Rhea answered with documents, timestamps, and the list of credentials Jordan had not bothered to hand out. These are facts, Rhea said at last, voice steady. The conservatory is safer today than it was yesterday because we listened to expertise in time. She sat. Silence followed, a silence broken by an unexpected voice. I can corroborate, said the conservatory's oldest archivist, B, who rarely attended any meeting but had watched every year pass under glass. She walked forward with small steps and a large folder. Also, I found this in the ledger stacks last night. She held up the 1944 letter. There are more, hidden in the wall seam behind the accession logs. 2 women who served here during the war years wrote to each other about this place, about how its light made them believe they could be fully themselves. This institution has always sheltered courage. A murmur ran around the table. B turned to Rhea. I think history is tapping us on the shoulder. Then a second surprise. The city's chief engineer walked in, summoned not by Rhea, but by Jordan, who had sent a quiet, thorough report at dawn with no drama, only solutions. We verified Ms. Vale's assessment, the chief said. The risk was real. The response was correct and timely. My office commends the director and Ms. Vale for preventing a public incident. Gerald deflated like a poorly built marquee. Evelyn's gaze to her credit softened. Public perception still matters, she said, weaker now, as if she knew the argument had lost its teeth. Then we show the public something worth perceiving, Rhea replied. She proposed a safety stewardship day, transparent tours of the hidden work that keeps beauty standing, credit shared with volunteers, engineers, and the people who never make the front page. The motion carried. After the meeting, Jordan leaned against a brick column in the staff corridor, looking like someone who prefers progress to praise. You didn't have to go to war for me, she said. Rhea shook her head. I didn't. I went to war for the way you do your work, and for a future where rumors don't decide what women are allowed to do. Jordan's eyes warmed. Then let me fight for something too. She hesitated, as if moving from one beam to another. People online will do what they do, but inside these walls, if anyone tries to turn this place against you, I won't stand back. Rhea smiled, a real one. I already know that. They returned to the restricted gallery to prepare for repairs. Under a lifted floor panel, a small, dust-coated tin box slid into view. Inside were 6 letters tied with thread, each signed M or R. As Jordan read one aloud, we do not belong to their rules. We belong to the light we make when we are brave together. The conservatory hummed like a chord finally finding its home note. Love had lived here long before them. Maybe it was time to stop pretending it hadn't. But what happened next changed everything. Instant Karma Safety Stewardship Day drew a line of neighbors that wrapped around the koi pond. Teachers, carpenters, teenagers with phone cameras ready, and elders who remembered when the conservatory first opened all its rooms after the war. Rhea led the first tour with Jordan and Bea, telling the truth without apology. Beauty is not fragile because it is weak, Rhea said into the mic, but because it holds history, promises, and the labor of many hands. We keep it safe together. She introduced facilities by name, then Jordan, a volunteer who happens to be a field-tested structural engineer. Applause started, unforced. Reporters asked about the anonymous photos. Rhea didn't flinch. They were taken without consent and sent without context. The context is safety. The truth is teamwork. That is all. In the crowd, a young woman lifted a hand, her voice small but firm. My mom and her partner used to bring me here when I was little, because it felt like we were allowed to exist under this glass. Thank you for keeping it safe and for standing up the way you did. The instant karma began quietly. Donors who had threatened to review their exposure called to increase their gifts. They didn't suddenly become saints. They recognized courage the public admired. Gerald Pike, whose grandson had been turned down for a staff job he had not earned, discovered that people now preferred to sit at other tables. Evelyn, who preferred control to chaos, did something rarer than a grant. She changed her mind. She asked Rhea for a private tour, listened without interrupting, and admitted, I was wrong to make perception the main thing. Rarer still, she said it on camera to the local arts reporter. That night, under string lights in the orangerie, the board voted to establish the M&R Fellowship, a paid pipeline for conservation and safety roles, named only by initials and a plaque that read, For the women who were brave before we were allowed to be. Rhea and Jordan stood at the edge of the light, not hiding, not performing. You could have stayed invisible, Rhea said. You could have let me handle it alone. Jordan shook her head. I don't believe in alone. She glanced toward the restricted gallery, now scaffolded and safe. Also, for the record, I didn't come to the conservatory to find trouble. No? I came to find a place where the structure was honest. She met Rhea's eyes. Found one. For the first time, Rhea reached for Jordan's hand in public. No performance, just the truth. The string lights didn't flare. The sky didn't split. But something inside Rhea unlocked with a gentle click, the lock she'd built to protect herself from hope. The next morning, an ethics complaint landed in the board inbox anyway, filed by a concerned patron who spelled Jordan's last name wrong and included a 4-paragraph lecture on values. It was too late to matter. The community had spoken. The city had spoken. And the building itself, patched and braced, seemed to breathe easier. But what happened next changed everything. The house. We're building the restricted gallery reopened 3 months later, not with a ribbon, but with a breath. Visitors walked a new catwalk that let them see the old iron up close, a small brass plate explaining the repair and the people behind it. In a quiet corner, the M&R letters sat framed under glass with a simple caption, Found in the wall. Carried forward. Rhea learned to live with a different weather inside. Not fear of scandal, but the shyness of a first real happiness. She and Jordan traded early mornings for late evenings, walking the glass corridors as sunset turned the domes to gold. They fought sometimes, about tempo, about how fast to move policy, about how to share credit, but they fought like builders, not like arsonists. When they failed forward. When they won, they split the applause with everyone who could not fit on the stage. On a mild spring night, with magnolias lighting the dark like paper moons, the conservatory hosted its annual gala. Rhea wore deep green and didn't apologize for the silver in her hair. Jordan wore black and didn't apologize for the calluses on her hands. Evelyn introduced a new fund that would permanently endow safety audits and structural care. Bea accepted a Lifetime Stewardship Award and cried exactly once. Then, in the part of the program reserved for remarks from the director, Rhea told a short story about a building that sings when it's stressed, about a volunteer who heard the song, about letters hidden in a wall that taught her that some of us inherit courage, like we inherit eye color, and about a city that decided to protect what protects it. She ended simply, "We are not here to be perfect. We are here to be responsible to each other." The applause did not feel like victory. It felt like belonging. After the crowd thinned and the lights softened, Jordan led Rhea to the place where they'd braced the failing joint on that storm night. The steel was quiet now, satisfied. "You once told me that floors talk," Rhea said. "What's it saying tonight?" Jordan moved her palm along the iron and smiled. "It's saying the load is shared." She pulled a small box from her pocket, not a ring, but a tiny key, old and elegant. "To my workshop," she said, suddenly unsure, suddenly 32 again with everything to ask. "If you want space in it," Rhea laughed, surprised by tears. "I want space in everything you're building." She handed Jordan a key of her own, the director's extra to the conservatory's side door. "So you can come listen to the floors whenever you need." They didn't kiss like a movie would demand. They stood with foreheads touching, letting the building's quiet settle in their bones. Somewhere, a child squealed at a koi that swirled like a living coin. Somewhere, an elder told a teenager that this place had always been brave. And somewhere inside Rhea, a 46-year-old woman who thought she had to choose between love and work, finally retired a lie she no longer needed. The story did not end with a ceremony. It ended with practice, showing up, telling the truth, doing the work, and refusing to let small people make big rules. The instant karma had landed where it belonged, and what remained was the slow, loyal justice of a community that remembers who stood steady when the glass trembled. Under the arch of iron and light, Jordan squeezed Rhea's hand. "Restricted areas," she whispered, smiling. "Sometimes they just mean handle with care." Rhea nodded. "Then let's handle this with care." The conservatory exhaled, and so did they. But what happened next changed everything.